let me not waste time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our speaker of the evening, Mr. Smarajit Mitra. And over to you, Smriti. Could you please formally welcome him in our webinar and start the meeting?
Yes, sir, sure. So good evening, everyone. Today we have Mr. Smarajit Mitra with us. Mr. Mitra is the owner of SMA Consulting Services, established in 1991, and his company has been leading in providing solutions in financial matters. He is also a chartered accountant and has been into financial services before setting up Office Consultancy House. He has a wide experience in project structuring, identification, and finance. He is one of the major consultants in credit policies and international firm requirements. He is also an advisor to leading corporate houses. He is an alumni of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. He is a person of diverse knowledge, experience, and skills. So now let's hear from Mr. Mitra. Over to you, sir.
Hi, a very good evening to all of you. Great to see you all here. It's a Saturday evening, and I'm sure everyone has much better things to do than to come and listen to how the world is breaking apart all around us. I assure you, I will not be the foreteller of doom here. Rather, I would like to point out as to what could be, the areas where possibly the rainbow at the end of the after a storm will bring us a lot of luck, a lot of goodwill, and a lot of prosperity as far as industry is concerned. In half an hour, it's slightly difficult to do a deep dive on the entire industry-wise outlook. So what we would possibly like to do this evening is to take you through with some parallel, share some information, look at what are the trends for the future industries which possibly have the potential of becoming mega giants of today, and how you can teach the elephant to dance. Basically, large corporates who I refer to as elephants, it's very difficult to make them dance. And to go ahead with it, you need to have certain skill sets and certain policy matters which possibly the management can take forward. Let me start with a little bit of looking back. I start with a quotation from Winston Churchill, who said that never let a good crisis go to waste. Everything you can blame on COVID-19, but is it really so? Let's just look back a little bit. 2018, US starts putting up the trade barriers across its borders, creates an environment of, should I say, lack of confidence as far as China is concerned, and the rumblings of the distant thunder comes into play. 2019, the margin of US tariff for Chinese imports into US moves from 3% to 20%. COVID-19 is in the background. It had not come and hit our lives with this intensity as it is right now. The pandemic is waiting in the wings. And this is something where the economy is moving towards a, how should I say, slowdown? I wouldn't call it a slowdown. That would be politically incorrect. I would say a sort of slight distrust in doing business. Global confidence in trade is something which is being hampered. 2018, 2019. 2019, November, the COVID-19 comes through and starts its play as a pandemic. Move back to 1918, where the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 is something which is compared with. the present scenario. What was happening there and what's happening now? 1918, the Spanish flu hit. 1919 end, a deep depression comes into force across the world and as far as business is concerned. 1920 end, the World War starts. And thereafter, between the pandemic, a depression and the World War, there is havoc to play. On an estimated basis, the total deaths is somewhere between 40 to 50 million in 1918 to 1919. And it didn't end there, it went across a few years. The depression was a natural result. Thereafter, the war came through. It was a double whammy. I am not forecasting a war, though each pandemic is more than a war, because 40 to 50 million people perished in the Spanish flu pandemic, whereas in the World War, only 9 million, I say only on a comparative basis, had actually died in a war. So this is much bigger than a war. The question is, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? And as we move through across the total, spectrum of events, we will find that what COVID-19 has actually done is it has brought down the level of global confidence in trade and integration across the world. The manpower part, the people, and the utilization of people is something which is under question at this very, very moment. Let's start taking a look at some of the happenings over a period in industry. What are the 5 main industries which have been impacted? It's a no-brainer to know that the first one was basically airlines across the world. Airlines. And the second, take a guess on that. It's not really automotives, or it's not really the property, real estate. It is casinos and gamings. And the third are leisure facilities, which include hotels, resorts, and other ancillary industries which go with leisure as well as travel, business as well as casual. The fourth most impacted one are the auto parts and equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, take a note, it's not the automotives, it is the auto parts and equipment which was most impacted from 1st of March to 30th of April. May data hasn't come in as yet fully. And the fifth one that has come over is the oil and gas drilling. Again, haven't we heard of airlines collapsing? There is one very notable case in India, which I will not go into details, but why would an airlines crash? Point number 2, why would a steel giant, steel and aluminium and iron ore giant collapse suddenly, and their bonds are rated as BA+, which is just next to junk, which till just maybe 6 months back was the bluest of the blue chips available in the market. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm trying to point out. Both these industries are mortgage based. The amount of lending it has from the banks, financial institutions, and the mortgage loans are disproportionately high. as compared to the overall business, as compared to the equity of the owners, as compared to the surety of the flow of business. And it is very visible. So what has COVID-19 done? COVID-19 has speeded up the process of a collapse, but the basic structure of the industry is risk prone. So let's not blame everything on the COVID-19. What COVID-19 has done is it has speeded up a process, or it has caused hindrance in providing resources to industry. The lockdown internationally is a temporary phase, but COVID-19 is here to stay. This is what makes us start changing the rules of the game and start changing them pretty fast. Oil and gas drilling, the oil fiasco of the Middle East and the collapse of the oil cartel, as well as the pricing factor, are not directly related to COVID-19. What about the leisure facilities? Leisure facilities, once again, here the demand portion of the total industry is very fluctuating. And here, business travel, with the business travel and travel in general being hampered, the overall industry impact of this crisis is amplified across. Auto parts and equipment. Auto parts and equipment is something which will provide ancillary support to the automotive industry. It is a point to be brought into focus here that the main impact of a lockdown started from somewhere around January mid to the current scenario across the world. So 3/4 of 2019-20 was something which was protected. And that is what, over and above COVID-19, my point is, and you should also study the factor that why would industry go bust for a temporary period of slowdown of activity? 20 to 23 million people in India are estimated to be unemployed. Figures are things which are more often than not quite subject to a lot of doubts. If we look at even the figures taken as sacrosanct, 23 million employees being retrenched, people unemployed, check out where it has happened. Which segment, which part of the pyramid is actually being affected? You will find that hardly any specialists, unless that specialization has become redundant or has been pushed back, has lost their job. It is general people and the bottom of the pyramid which is moving into the unemployed segment and that misery. What does that tell us? And what does it have in store for the future? This is something which we will just take a look at. China, the favorite villain of the entire piece. And we do really want to take this forward with China and help them to stop this corona impact. On China, only the integrated circuit board amount which is needed for any kind of hardware across the IT world, almost 35% of the integrated circuit boards come from China. And I'm sure a lot of you would be knowing that just Taiwan and South Korea supplies the components for these IC boards to China. And the GDP dependence only on the IC board supply is 2% of the South Korean GDP is dependent on it. 5% of the Taiwanese GDP is dependent on it. So any rumblings in China would create a major ripple effect all along this Asia Pacific area. The SAARC region and the Far East, each and every country is impacted. I have not even come to US or Europe, where component wise, the dependence on China is fabulous. So what happens now? We look at it from the point of view of exports. What do we do now? Look for a substitute. What are the buyers doing right now? This is something which is absolutely a big question in everybody's mind. What are they doing now? If you have to set up base somewhere else, it will at least need a period of 8 years before the total capacity is looked at. So you cannot do with China right now. Do away with it. You will have to live with it while parallel manufacturing integration units are set. Everybody says that IT is something to look forward to. Where will the hardware come from? We take it a fact that upgradation of hardware, unless it is for a specific purpose, is something which not many industries are looking at right now. For us, we will have to look at it from the point of view of sustainability. For sustainability, we need to look at an alternative. What would India do for that matter on this? Before we come to that, there is another misnomer or an issue of understanding as far as the pharma is concerned. There is a widespread belief that pharma is going to through a boom and will peak, and is a segment which you have to look forward to. I'll just talk about India. For India, in the financial year 2019, India imported 24,900 crores of bulk drugs. Import is the basis on which these pharma giants and pharma companies operate. And out of that 25,000 almost crores of subsidiary, intermediary, and component drugs, 40% comes from China. If you add the consumables, chemicals, it will come to 70%. Consumption by value comes from China. Supply process has been disrupted. This is something you need to set right. You means all of us together and the world working together. But again, as I said, everybody loves a good crisis. When I say everybody, I'm talking about the governments. I'm talking about what exactly creates that division in a global village, which an industry should be like. The same thing happened during the Spanish flu and that revolution time. The same fudging of figures happened. The same political and religious divisions were put into place. We humans have not changed, and we will not change. So we will have to live with a pandemic and let some of the authorities that we take the credit or make the most of this time. What will business do? What will industry do? industry, as I said, should learn to make the elephant dance. What are the areas where India, or maybe internationally also, what are the areas where things can move in? My bet is with the logistics segment. The logistic vertical of the industry is something which has never had it so good. The creation of hub and spoke model for warehouses, automatic transmission, roads, helping material to be transported fast at a cheaper cost. So automotives, after this brief lull, should really peak, and specifically commercial vehicles. Again, warehousing and specialty warehousing for food, for medicines, for consumables, for FMCG will be the need of the hour. And I'm not even talking about the agricultural sector, which is moving into corporatization in a big way. A huge area stays there if the industry can link itself with the overall structure of an economy and coexist and supplement the movement of agricultural products. I will bet very high on the services industry. For a change, contactless systems, enhanced delivery services, remote banking services. So the basically MSMEs, smaller service providers who will be an extension of the larger banks would be somebody or some organizations which should flourish, because an MSME or a small organization is nimble. It flexes, it changes. Let me share with you the small story about a Middle East conglomerate which has a huge amount of multiplexes and has a huge number of real estate and other interests, including retail shopping. On this lockdown, when this lockdown started, they shifted from the multiplex, the idle people, to move into delivery of essential food products as a separate vertical, and they did it in 48 hours flat. It didn't take them 18 months. Wow. If you are nimble, you can do that. Yeah. You can do that. So these are just one of the examples. What happens to education? Education, sports, and well-being are again another area which will move through like anything. And I personally feel that a huge amount of funding will come into these areas, because these are the thoughts for the future. Software, specialty software will be something that we will look forward to a greater extent. Specialty hospitals, smart hospitals, robotics, AIs, and after the lockdown, most of the IT companies have tasted blood. Working from home, do you really need that office space? Can you really re-engineering? Can you really multitask? So these are areas where we can look forward to, and look forward to with pride. Huge amount of emphasis will be on the environment. Environment, pollution control, and the shortcut method or compromising on the quality of either material or services will not be tolerated by the market. I am afraid there will be no shortcuts. The airline industry is bound to revive. It will. After this initial shakeup, at a certain increment of cost of travel, don't you think you would be having a much better hygienic, spatial maintenance of safe distance between individual, entirely something which we would be looking forward to for a better tomorrow. I hate this term, a new normal. You know, there is nothing called a new normal. When you change the goalposts of a game, the game's rules automatically change. That, ladies and gentlemen, is normal. Today, this was normal. We have to upgrade. The world has to upgrade. And when it upgrades, it moves to the new normal. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will bring the success story, yet another success story of the resilience of international business. Indian business, once again, will be playing its role to a greater extent because the innovativeness, the so-called jugaad of the Indian ecosystem is something which I think India should be very proud of. The innovative movements of that man on the street, that small entrepreneur, the cost curtailing device put in place will be world class. So I think the world is waiting to upgrade itself right here, right now. Are you prepared? That is the question. Ladies and gentlemen, it's, I think my time is almost up. I would be open to questions. Please feel free to ask me. I'm sorry I had to be so sketchy here, but well, that's what life is all about. So much to do and so little time.
Sorry to give you that boundary. 5 p.m. 5 p.m.
Yes.
onwards on a Saturday and bringing you in a webinar as a speaker. Really sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are open for question and answer. If you have any question, please raise your hand. I'll put you in unmute mode, or you can put the question in the chat box. Okay, so for comments, Mr. Shomik Mitra is saying that it's very informative and he really liked it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitra. It's been a pleasure.
Mr. Ashish Agarwal is saying in-depth studies, Smarajit Dar, really, really nice.
Ashish, as a leading entrepreneur and somebody who's in the front line of industry, I take it as a very big compliment. Thank you, Ashish.
Hi, good evening. My name is Arun Kannan.
My pleasure, Smarajit.
Thank you so much. It's been very informative. But at the same
I said
time,
my pleasure, Smarajit.
Thank you, Ashish.
One question,
Tell
sir.
me please.
How much of your analysis is dependent of both government intervention and government not interfering?
Here, government intervention, my take on the government is, from the point of view of industry, is always slightly skewed and slightly suspect. The government always tries to do a lot of things and its intentions are always very noble, but the execution is invariably faulty. I'm sorry to say this, but that is how it happens, and the brunt has to be taken by the industrialists and the investors. Here, I am talking about statistics which are available internationally, specifically for India. I think I'll not go into the details of what has been, what benefits the government is bringing out, but every government, every person who's in the seat of power needs to rationalize. Unless they rationalize, the people will, or the industry will not take it. I think we are waiting for sense and sensibility to run.
Smarajit, this is Shudip. Can I chip in?
Yeah, Shudip, tell me please.
Yeah, well, few years back, there was a UN cry as PM's slogan regarding Make in India.
Yeah.
Then now it's again come in the forefront. But from my experience, this Make in India was just a slogan. There was no implementation as far as rules and regulations were concerned. Do you think there will be any stringent rules regarding this, or is it possible at all?
My point of view here is that we are talking about a lot of industry or the government wooing the Chinese based industrial houses to come to India to set it up as a manufacturing base as an alternative to China. My take on this is not going to happen in a hurry because of infrastructural deficiencies, number one. And number two, take for example, the simple thing about textile. Its textile industry is not simple, but see what happens in the textile industry. As we talk today, even before the coronavirus hits us, we were price-wise not competitive with something like with some countries like Vietnam, some country like Indonesia, which were much more cost effective to the international buyers. Unless we rectify that situation, I think the labor law change is something in that direction. But the plethora, until this plethora of legalities, and the biggest problem of the whole thing is managing things. So if this thing happens, how would India become competitive? A very deep, hard look is needed to take this thing forward. But I think India will definitely cease to be a bystander in this game and will be one of the prime movers. And here I believe that the overall industrial climate will also change.
Super answer.
Thank
So I've got a comment from Ajanta ma'am. She's saying,
Yeah.
I think the buzzword for now more than new normal is right sizing of industries, economy, our collective lifestyles, and our individual choices.
Yeah.
Beautiful comment,
Okay.
ma'am. I've got a question. I've got a question from Sumanta Bose. He's
Yeah.
an MBA student from UEM Calcutta. His question is, can a big industry diversifying their business or should choose another way? Okay.
Let's look at the first question. The buzzword, ma'am, the question is, can anybody really downsize their wants to a rock bottom extent? You cannot do it. The basic requirement of individuals for comfort, for entertainment, for livelihood will remain. Downsizing is because, you know, with the demand side and the supply side of an industry, the demands, since the purchasing power is expected not to be, floating around too high, so there will be, the rationalizing. Downsizing is something, ma'am, I am actually quite overweight. So downsizing is a word I don't like. So size does matter actually at the end of the day. But you have to move with that and take it forward. So this is what my take is on the subject. As far as a large industry diversifying, my dear friend, you will see a lot of amalgamations, a lot of mergers, and a lot of severing. What will happen is the patience level of industry is bound to come down. We cannot wait indefinitely for results. The world cannot wait. The economy cannot wait. So you have to produce results. It has to be fast. So any affected portion of that organization structure will either have to upgrade or will have to perish. A very, very drastic thing which will have to be done. But there cannot be a free lunch and a free breakfast without any returns to it. So that's my take on that. Yes, please. Next question.
Hey, Sharajit,
Yeah, tell me.
I just wanted to add. I mean, I think your information is fantastic. I just wanted to add the role of the government. I think one of the big failures that I've noticed was the creation of uncertainty, not just in India, but throughout the world. I think
Right.
a lot of today's business failures, industrial failures, have come about because this disease, more than the disease itself, has caused a level of uncertainty that we've never seen before. We don't know what the countries or the cities are going to open up tomorrow, whether there's going to be a third wave of coronavirus. We don't know whether
there can be n number of waves actually that we are looking at, but yeah, this uncertainty unfortunately will last, Raja. There's very little we can do. I mean, let my point, and since we are almost running out of time, I'll just paraphrase it in a simple way. Let us not forget that the entire tragedy of Romeo and Juliet was because of the plague.
Right.
Because the person who was supposed to carry that note could not take it because of the plague, and that is why Romeo and Juliet were did not know exactly or in sync with information. So that is something which will continue, and it is our duty as part of the industry, around the industry, moving across the industrial spectrum, or as part of the economy, or even just as a consumer, that the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet does not happen in this plague.
Right. And could I just add a little word on China? I mean, I think,
please,
blaming China is way too easy.
Absolutely.
But strategically, they started their plan in around 1995.
Yes, absolutely.
Joined the World WTA in 2001.
Yes, you were in the thick of things at that time, Raja. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And they strategically built their country through investments.
Huge re-engineering went on. Is India ready to do that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say $1, but are we really in it? So this is a big question, hard question you have to ask ourselves.
Thank you so much, audience. Thank you, Raja Babu. Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Smarajit.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. It was great interacting with all of you. Thank you for taking out time on an evening on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Arijit, the person behind this all. Yeah, he's responsible for all the good things.